Assalamualaikum friends. Today we are going to discuss about questions. How to form questions with or without auxiliary verb. You know that it's very hard for us to make the conversation or the speaking without asking the question. And commonly the questions we have to use is by using question words. And now we are going to study systematically how to form the question from the very easy way and then with auxiliary verb or without auxiliary verb. And I believe that these explanations will be easy for you to understand because here you can see easily how or in what case we have to use do, does or did in questioning. And sometimes it's very common for the new learners to make the mistakes or misplace about the use of these kinds of auxiliary verb. Let's take a look. Okay, well friend, before we come to see how to make the question, first of all we have to know first what the question words are. And here you can see the examples of question words. Number one, we have who. Who, it is to us person as subject. And then whom, to us person as subject. Next, we have where, it is used to us place. And then when, to us time. Next, number 5, we have why. It is to us reason. Why. Number 6, we have how. It is to us manner or mood. How. Number 7, we have which. It is to us choice or thing. Which. And then next, number 8, whose. It is to us possession. Number 9, we have what. It is used to us thing. Okay, please memorize these question words then. And then now, how to form the question by using question words. Let's see. We divide the pattern to form the questions into two. Number 1 is part A, asking subject. So anytime you want to ask the doer of one action, whether it is persons or thing, but whenever it is the subject, we do not use any specific pattern. We just use question word, and then after that we continue our question with the verb of that sentence. That's it. For example, sentence number 1, we have he looks charming today. Now if we want to ask the subject he, we just use who because it is subject, it is person, and then for the rest is just continue with the verb. Who looks charming today? So we use who and then plus verb. Now example number 2. So it is the same. Whenever we ask the subject, we do not need any pattern, any specific pattern now. Sentence number 2, for example, we have my cousin broke his promise. My cousin broke his promise. If I want to make a question and then the answer is my cousin or the subject, I just use who and then after that plus verb and the rest. Who broke the promise? Who broke the promise? And then the answer will be my cousin did. My cousin. So whenever we want to ask who, it is just followed by the verb. Any kind of verb. Can be in past tense, in present, or in any other tenses. So it means you may ask by using who and then after that followed by verb. For example, who took my pen? Who takes my pen? Who doesn't like that? Number 3, we have that question confuse her. For example, we want to ask a question, which answer is that question. That question is the subject, so we just use what, and then for the rest is just the verb. What confused her? What confused her? And then the answer is that question. So anytime the question are subject, we may use all question words. But remember that we do not need any additional auxiliary verb, because after the question word, we just use the verb of that question. And how about the tense? The tense doesn't matter. So whatever the tenses are, this can be applied in this way. For example, number 4, we have that flower smells nice. This one is simple present. So whenever we want to ask with which, the answer is that flower, we just use which smells nice. Which smells nice. So it's simple present. So we do not use any auxiliary verb after that. And then the next, how if we want to ask a part of the subject. So our question will be part of the subject. So the way is just the same. We just replace that part. For example, like this. Her smile indicates her support. We want to ask her. The smile belongs to whom? Now, so we just use whose, and then the rest is just the same. Whose smile indicates her support. Now, so the answer is just her smile. This is another example showing that our question is a part of the subject. Remember, we just replace the part that we want to ask here by question word. After that, we just continue with the other part. So for example, red hat belongs to your sister. Red hat belongs to your sister. We want to ask red. So our question, the answer of our question will be red. So which hat belongs to your sister? We just replace red into which. Let's see another example. For example, number 7, we have discipline word. Now this one belongs to the subject. And then whenever we want to ask a question which answer is discipline, we just replace that with the proper question word. In this case, it's what? What work? What work? Now this what work here belongs to the subject, so we just continue with its verb. What work brings him to success? So the answer will be discipline work. So now let's see another part, part B. It is not asking subject. So anytime you want to make a question which answer is not the subject, we must follow this pattern. The first is question word, and then after that is auxiliary verb plus subject and the rest of the sentence. Maybe some of you have known the auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, but that's okay if I present them here again so that we are familiar with these words. Now, so there are 24 auxiliary verbs or helping verbs that we have to memorize, so that anytime we want to make the negative sentence or the questions, we can change or we can make it easily, because the way is different if the sentence has no auxiliary verb. Here they are. Am, is, are, was, were, do, does, did, can, could, shall, should. Next, will, would, have, has, had. Next, must, may, might, need, dare, ought to, used to. Okay, well, now let's apply the pattern. So whenever we want to ask something but what we ask is not the subject, we have to follow the pattern I gave you before. For example, in the sentence of he's very lucky. So whenever we want to ask when here is about the time, not the subject, of course, we have to follow the rule. So when, and then plus auxiliary verb. In this case, we have is. When is, after that subject, he. When is he lucky? Or we want to ask the reason why. So why plus auxiliary verb is, and then subject is the same. Example number 2 is also by using auxiliary verb can. Mr. Latif can teach us mathematics. Now, so here we have auxiliary can, and then the pattern. For example, we want to ask when. When is the time, not the subject, so we have to follow the rule. When plus auxiliary verb can, and then the subject Mr. Latif. When can Mr. Latif teach us mathematics? Or for example, we want to ask the object. The object in this case is mathematics. Now, so we have to use question word what. After that is the auxiliary verb can, subject, and so on. What can Mr. Latif teach us? What can Mr. Latif teach us? So remember to use auxiliary verb. Next, number 3, we still use auxiliary verb as the examples. Sarah must submit her report tomorrow. Sarah must submit her report tomorrow. We have auxiliary verb must. So for example, we want to ask when, the time, and it is not subject, of course. We ask when plus auxiliary verb must, subject Sarah, and then the rest. When must Sarah submit her report? Number 4. Number 4 is in present perfect tense. They have forgotten their promise. So here we have auxiliary verb have. So whenever we want to ask how is not the subject, we have to follow the rule. How have they forgotten their promise? Okay, now starting for number 5 on, we will make the question without auxiliary verb. So whenever there is no auxiliary verb, we have to use do, does, did. So when can we use do, does, did? Let's take a look. For example, number 5, we have they clean their bicycle. They clean their bicycle. There is no auxiliary verb here. Now for they, we have to use auxiliary verb do for the present tense, simple present tense. So the question will be where plus do plus subject. Where do they clean their bicycle? Where do they clean their bicycle? Well, here I remind you the auxiliary verb that we can do. So when can we use do and when can we use does? So whenever the subject is I, you, they, we have to use do whenever there is no other auxiliary verb in the question. If the subject is he, she, it, we use does. Let's see another example. Number 6, we have you avoid sweet food. Now here there is no auxiliary verb and the subject is you. So we have to use do as the auxiliary verb. Why? For example, I want to ask the reason why, and then auxiliary verb do you. Why do you avoid sweet food? Okay, it's very easy. Next, number 7, we have I trust. Now, so there is no auxiliary verb, but it's a simple present. The subject is I, so we have to use do. How do I trust her? How do I trust her? Number 8, we are going to use the noun. The noun, the children. The children here is plural, so if we have to use the pronoun is they. The children here is the same as they. And there is no auxiliary verb, so the auxiliary verb we have to use is do, because the children here is the same as they. So for example, I want to ask the place when, and then auxiliary verb do plus the subject the children. Why do the children love to play outside? Okay, easy, right? Next, number 9, the girls dance on the stage. The girls is plural because there is s, you can see that, and it means if we have to use the pronoun is they. So even there is no auxiliary verb, the auxiliary verb that we have to use is do. When do the girls dance on the stage? Now let's try to make the question by using does whenever the sentence has no auxiliary verb and the subject is she, he, or it. For example, we have she smiles. So there is no auxiliary verb and the subject is she in simple present, so we have to use does. For example, I want to ask the reason why, and then does. After that, subject she and the verb. The verb here should be without s because we have does already. Why does she smile? Remember, smile should be without s. Next, Mr. Amir explains the lesson. Mr. Amir explains the lesson. Mr. Amir here, whenever we must use pronoun, should be he. So we must use does. How does Mr. Amir explain the lesson? Remember, explain should be without s because we have does already. Okay, it's very easy, right? So next, let's try number 12. In past tense. So in past tense, we must use did whenever there is no auxiliary verb in the sentence. They bought an office computer. They bought an office computer. So when I want to ask the time when, the auxiliary verb I use is did. After that, subject and then verb by. By should be in the first verb again in present verb because we have did already. So when did they buy an office computer? Next, number 13, that bird took your bread. Past tense took without auxiliary verb. If I ask how did that bird take your bread? Next, number 14, let's try if the subject is a little bit longer. For example, I say, the passenger beside me slept for hours. So the subject's in a praise, the passenger beside me, and then the verb slept in past tense, slept for hours. Now, so whenever I ask why, the auxiliary verb is did, past tense, subject passenger beside me, and then the first verb sleep. Why did the passenger beside me sleep for hours? Sleep in present now because we used did already. Or I want to ask how long. How long here is a praise of question word. How long did the passenger beside me sleep? How long did the passenger beside me sleep? So how long, after that auxiliary verb did, subject, and then the verb one sleep. Next, again, we try to use the question word with the modifier. Yeah. For example, we have he lived in Jakarta. He lived in Jakarta. So it is past tense. And then when I want to ask how long is considered as question word plus the modifier long. And then the auxiliary did because it is past tense, and then subject he, and then live for the first verb. How long did he live in Jakarta? With whom? So whom with the prepositions. With whom did he live in Jakarta? So just the same. So well, everybody, I believe that is very easy to follow, to understand, or even to apply this. So don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell of this channel, please. Thank you. Because this channel will not develop without your support. See you in the next video.